13 and 11 are a reorganization of debt. 13s are for individuals, and 11s are for corporations, businesses, or individuals. The thing about 13 is it's very structured. You file the paperwork with the bankruptcy court. There's a bankruptcy trustee appointed in that case. His job is to make sure we filed the paperwork right and to make sure that the payment plan, which is the other thing we file in a 13 with the paperwork that makes it distinct from Chapter 7. He's looking at the payment plan that how we've said we're going to restructure our debt. And basically, he's making sure that we are following all the rules that we have to follow in order to get a payment plan confirmed or approved. And that process takes 2 to 4 months. Basically, we file your Chapter 13. We go to a hearing a month later. The Chapter 13 trustee gives us this printout telling us the things he wants us to change about the plan or information he wants so he can make a decision about it. At that same time, you have to start making your mortgage payments again. And you also have to start making your payment to the trustee, which we calculate trying to follow all the rules before we file your bankruptcy. And so the trustee tells us what he wants us to do, but that's it for that hearing. They try to do about 8 hearings in a half an hour for that process as well. But these hearings, and I saw you look at her, the 8 hearings, it sounds like, wow, they're not paying any attention. Well, they have had, when somebody comes in to file bankruptcy, I give them a list of 25 things. Tax returns for the last 3 years, profit and loss statements for their businesses for the last 6 months, proof of income for the last 6 months, all their creditors' bills, tax statements for every piece of real estate, property, then a list of all the inventory of their house. All of that's filed with the court. The trustee's had a month to look at this. He's had his paralegal determine whether there are assets he can sell, or in a 7 or in a 13, whether this person's followed the rules. So the hearing is really just something we have to do so the debtor can be in there under oath testifying to answer any questions creditors have, and they never show up. And basically, to just have the person under oath saying their paperwork's true and correct. And so if they get in trouble, they can also be prosecuted for perjury. That's a cynical view of it. But basically, a month after the meeting of creditors, where the trustee gives us that sheet, there's a hearing in front of a judge. And that's called a confirmation hearing. The trustee's job in a 13 is to make sure the paperwork we've done looks right, make sure we've followed the rules, have the meeting of creditors, and after we've done all of what we're supposed to do, make a recommendation to the judge to approve the plan, because only the judge can approve the plan. And basically, those hearings are really fast because we don't even have to go to them if we have done everything we're supposed to do and there are no objections by creditors or the trustee. And that's the only way you can do about 150 hearings in an hour. And they just have a code and forms, and the judge hears the hearing later and signs off on the orders. And basically, the debtor makes the payments on the plan starting 30 days after we file. If we don't have any changes, that's the payment that the debtor makes for the next 5 years, and for 13s are for 5 years. And basically, Chapter 11, and at the end of the 5 years when you do a Chapter 13, if you make all your payments for the 5 years, basically you get your discharge in that case. You basically have paid off your car because it has to be paid in the plan. You've paid a percentage to your unsecured creditors, between 1% and 100% plus interest. You've paid that. If you paid less than 100%, the amount you did not pay is discharged because you paid the plan the court approved 5 years before. And so you get this discharge order in a 13 when you've completed the plan. I never recommend 13s unless you make too much money to qualify for a 7, or you're behind on your house or your car and you're trying to save your house or your car, because that's, you file a 13 to stop foreclosures typically. So Chapter 11 is a lot more expensive for people. I mean, it's a fairly hefty fee. I mean, I do them. I'm cheaper than probably people in Columbia and Charlotte, and I don't do them for less than $15,000 up front. Whereas a Chapter 7, you could do it for like $1,500. And basically, an 11 is where there is no trustee. We're reorganizing the debts, and there is no trustee. You, as the debtor, and your lawyer have to do all the paperwork yourself, send out the plan to all the creditors, send out ballots to all the creditors, and get votes to vote for your plan. And frequently you're on the phone calling creditors saying, "You remember that piece of paper I sent you? Can you sign yes and mail it in?" And it's a process where we have to do a lot more complicated plan. There is no form like there is in a 13. We have to follow a specific form in a 13. In an 11, we write it. Every time you're reinventing the wheel. And you have to do a disclosure statement, which is like my brain's gone dead. It's like when the Securities Exchange Commission, you have to do a prospectus. When you're doing a public stock offering, tell everything there is to know about a company before somebody's going to decide whether to invest in it. Well, when you do the plan in an 11 and mail it to the creditors to vote on it, you have to have a disclosure statement that tells everything there is to know about this debtor, why they screwed up, their history, how things are going to be better, why this plan's going to fix everything, and why they should vote for it. And that has to be approved by the judge at a hearing before you can even get your plan approved. So 11s, all you really need to know about 11s is they cost a whole lot. They are for people who owe too much money to qualify for Chapter 13, but they need to reorganize. Or they are for corporations that need to not go out of business and they need to restructure their debt. U.S. Air does Chapter 11s every few years. Basically, that's really about it for the overview of the different kinds of bankruptcies and the history. There is Chapter 9, which is a reorganization of cities. There's Chapter 12, which is a reorganization of individual family farmers or family fishermen. I've never done a 12. I don't even know if a 9's been done in South Carolina. They used to do more 12s in South Carolina than they do now. But so basically that's it for that section. I'm going to do the questions at the end because we are a little short on time.